Hello and welcome to another episode on Journey to Authenticity, a podcast helping you to become fully authentic on your journey to success. I'm your host, Braiden Belnap, and I'm a human just like you, striving to build a dream life, all while I stay true to myself. But what if you are in business or aspiring to be in business, and you want to build a multi-million dollar business, and you almost feel like, is there certain aspects of myself that I need to let go to fall in line so that I can connect with like-minded people, so that I can get my business to millions to billions of dollars? That's exactly why we have Michael McHenry coming into the podcast today. Because don't get me wrong, he has lost himself. He lost himself in the early years of his 20s in houses, in cars, not truly knowing who he was. And along his journey, he found out that he could be himself. He doesn't fall in line with the typical standards. And it's simply by him being himself that allows him to build optimal culture for his businesses, create safe places for his employees and for the customers that come into his restaurants. It allows him to be more approachable and shows people that he is human, just like you guys. And today you'll be able to pick his brain and learn from one of the greatest. Michael, welcome to the show, brother.
Man, happy to be here, bro.
This has been a long time coming. I'm excited to have you on.
Dude, did this start like on Instagram? Is that where it was, like DMs, or where did we connect originally to get to this point?
I commented on a picture you sent me to Samantha, and Samantha kicked us off.
Dude, listen, she is the ultimate gatekeeper. Well, clearly it worked, man. So happy to be here. Thank you for welcoming me in.
Absolutely. Yeah. So just to jump straight to it, what inspired entrepreneurship in the restaurant business?
Dude, honestly, I had no business like getting into the restaurant business to begin with. Like, that's something that I look back now and go like, I knew nothing about the foods business except for from the guest perspective, right? I was studying finance. Bowling was my sport at the time. So like pursuing a career as a professional bowler, owning my bowling pro shops, instruction, retail, everything associated with bowling was really like, that's where I felt like I was headed. Like, that's from 11 years old until I was about 20, almost 21. Like, that was it. I bowled over 34,000 games. Like, I saw myself owning bowling pro shops and being a professional bowler. And the food business showed up to me, on accident. I was renting a space from the owners of Fat Cats, over here in Salt Lake City. And I had leased a space from them, retail space, 1,000 to 1,200 square feet. And I had my bowling pro shop in there, and it was called McHenry Sports Shop. And about 5-6 months into it, these guys that owned the brand came to me with the vision of at the time, it was called Costa Azul, which is now turned into Costa Vida, that has over 100 locations. They're probably a $200+ million company at this point. And at the time, it was nothing more than an idea. And they came to me and said, like, hey, McHenry, like, we think you'd be a rocking general manager and be the first general manager in this vision that we have. And, hey, we can't afford to pay you much, but we'll give you some sweat equity, like come in here and kick ass and take names, and, the rest will be fruitful history. And how many times that entrepreneurs or business owners or ideas have we sat down and you've heard like, this is what it's going to look like, and the carrot's out in front of you. And reality of it is, these guys brought me, an opportunity, and they brought just enough vision, and I went all in. When I say I went all in, like, I've bowled more than 34,000 games. I never picked up a bowling ball competitively again, like the next day. Like, I literally shifted what I thought was my whole life's intent overnight to become an entrepreneur, to become, a contributor in someone else's vision. And, the birth of that is what put me in the entrepreneurial seat. Like, I've said this many, many times before, but dude, before you ever own your own business, you got to put yourself in the seat of owning someone else's. Man, I did that for a handful of other partners. I did that as I was hired on to become an employee, whether I was a director of operations, a VP of operations, the chief marketing officer, the COO, or the president of the company. I took the approach to become, the type of employee that owned someone else's business, and ultimately, put me in the seat here today, man.
Absolutely. I love that. So what age were you when you started your bowling business?
Yeah. So, I mean, if we go all the way back, right? and sort of my entrepreneurial spirit started clear back in the early 90s, before that was even like a term, right? No one even knew what an entrepreneur was. At that point, you were a business owner. small business or large business, kind of no in between,
Sure.
right? The entrepreneurial spirit, you can thank Gary Vee and some others that made that more mainstream over the course of the past like 15 years. But back in the early 90s, like you were just a hustler, right? You were making things happen. And so my first job, it was kind of twofold. I did that like typical landscaping, knock on doors, mow lawns, got my buddies working for me. And I was never the one that actually mowed the lawn. I was the one that knocked on the door and closed the deal. I charged $5, paid them $3, and kept $2 and just kept moving. And that was something I did at my daughter's age, right? I was 11, 12 years old. And then I ended up like end of my like elementary, kind of adolescence area, like 6th grade to 7th grade. Then I had worked a deal, and I've never smoked, ever. I mean, I've had a drag or two from time to time, but I started selling cigarettes at 6th or 7th grade, and I sold those for like 3 or 4 years and mowed lawns, and then ultimately got in the bowling business. And that was really all I knew until I got into the food business. And that's really when it started for me. I mean, my first business, knocking doors, selling landscaping, and then ultimately, selling cigarettes out of my backpack. And then it was bowling balls, sweet pork burritos, and, all the way to where we are now.
Since sweet pork burritos from Costa Vida is always a win.
Bro, I'll tell you right now, I tease when I say it, but I'm like, dude, Tomatillo Ranch and sweet pork built our first 2 houses. All the fun shit came afterwards. Yeah.
That is amazing. So how long were you with Costa Vida for?
Let's see, dude. I was with them for 7 years. Yeah, somewhere in that range, 6 or 7 years. Yeah, I was there from 0 stores to many. Yeah, and played a big contributing part, early part and effort in achieving like our outer market outcomes. So opening stores in Idaho, opening stores in Colorado, obviously kind of border to border here in Utah. And what an crazy, wonderful experience it was, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I literally, my mentor there, Sean Collins, who is still the CEO, acting CEO today, that's probably taught me more than any one other person in business ever. It was in those fundamental years, right? Those entrepreneurial years where you have the spirit, you have the commitment, you have the drive, but you don't have the acumen, you don't have the experience. Sure. And it takes someone to believe in you, right? It really takes someone to believe in you in that state, to see potential that you have yet to actually achieve or yield or even see in your own reflection yet. And Sean believed in me, bro. Like it's really, truly why I believe I have such great culture in my businesses now. And why those that work for me know that their biggest champion is in me, because I know what it felt like to get that for the first time. I recognize what it means to have someone else believe in you before you truly believe in you or even know how to believe in you yet. And that changed my whole life, dude. So yeah, I was there for a few years.
It takes one person.
Yeah.
And honestly, that one person doesn't have to be another person. It could be you or another person, but it certainly helps when somebody else believes in you.
No doubt. I mean, I'm unwavering. I think any professional athlete has put in the time and they understand it. You say like, dude, I don't care if you're a professional bowler, a football player, a basketball player, a golfer. Reality is I have friends in the tops of those sports currently. I have friends that have been rookie of the year and top performers in bowling. Some of my closest friends are franchise players on NBA teams. Dude, I mean, I think I pretty close friends in all professional sports except for baseball. For whatever that reason is, I don't know too many people in the baseball vertical. And, I golf once or twice a week with a pro. And the reality is these guys, they know what it takes in terms of work ethic. It doesn't mean they know everything, but there's something about athletes, specifically professional athletes, that are just unwavering in their pursuit. And I feel like I was able to take something like that and apply it into an industry that I knew nothing about except from the guest perspective. And that was a wild cheat code.
And the thing that I've recognized from this conversation is what makes the people great is their willingness to say, I'm not so great here.
Yeah. I think, dude, I think it's recognizing that you have gaps and not holding yourself back from it and being resourceful. I met with a group of guys this morning that we're like incubating this kind of business club in a sense, where it's like this really cool, activated space in the heart of downtown Salt Lake City. And you're gonna have these very like-minded individuals, but the reality of it is like, you got to pay to play. And when you come into this, you'll have different resources, whether that be media, VC, access to capital, branding, all kinds of different aspects. And what's really cool about that is that the individuals you start to pair with, even I think at the highest level in your entrepreneurship or in the progress of your own growth and the success of your business and portfolio, what I have found is that kind of the bigger you get and the further along, the more teachable you become. And that's what's wild. Young, we're like, hold it close to the chest. We know everything. And what I found, when you start enterprising is like, I just want to be the best I can be. Show me. I want to be the absolute best. And my sister-in-law, it's wild, but I asked her like, some time ago, this was years ago, she's a top development and onboarding coach. And she had the crazy opportunity, and has had for many, many years, to coach the CEO of Nike. And I remember asking her in Maui years ago, I'm like, what is it like coaching like Mark Parker? I mean, this guy is literally like one of the most respected and most known CEOs in the world, right? It's like, I think it's like the Mickey Mouse icon, and then Nike is like the second most recognized brand in the world. And then I think there's like McDonald's and a handful of others. And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, it's just got to be intimidating. And she's like, no, because guys like Mark only want to be better. Like, they just want to be better. And so I feel like that's been a big shift from like when you get into business, you get into entrepreneurship, you get that imposter syndrome, you get these other things going. You're like, geez, you believe and have to make claim that you know everything. When in reality, you don't, and you don't need to. And so I think there's a different level of clarity and just confidence, awareness that follows, I think, the most successful, that they just recognize their gaps and they just know how to close them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And closing them comes with people.
Big time. I mean, that's the greatest asset, no doubt.
So we've talked a lot about the rainbows and unicorns.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the hardships.
Yeah.
It couldn't have been just a linear up.
No, the journey sucks, man. Like you have to find ways to, when I say the journey sucks, like it's painful for a reason. Like you got to earn the outcomes. Anything that is viable, anything that is like truly sustainable comes at a price. And trust me, dude, I was the person like, dude, I caused divorce. I caused wreckage. I lost jobs. I sabotaged jobs. I made millions. I lost millions. I built jobs. I lost jobs. Like I'm the guy you're sitting with that actually has been through that, right? Like, dude, it looks like now that what we do and how we do it, that it seems like everything works. And the reality of it is we're in a very tough, competitive, and probably the most subjective industry of all, right? Our palates are the most subjective of anything else that even smart people in the room try to come up with. Like, even think about this right now for you, Braid. Like, what business is more subjective than the food business?
Well, your one friend said titties.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and he was wrong. But I called his ass out on that.
Absolutely.
And I love Doc Nick, and he does a great job. But I think there is, like, no one really paid attention when we would open restaurants and beg people to show up, and we'd close restaurants. And dude, even for the success of, Costa Vida, reality is, Mike, my last 2 years there, big part of my job was literally acquiring and realigning with failing franchisees. That's just like, they had the recipe book, they had the method, they had the system, but they just couldn't execute, right? And there's a lot of variables in any true business. But like I said, dude, the journey sucks, and it's there to actually build the muscle. It's there to build the callus and ultimately soften it over time. It's there to be one that goes in and actually like figures it out, really, really develops it. And so, I used to beg people to show up to the restaurants years ago. And, unfortunately, like I mentioned, like we've lost a few $1 million along the way. And now we found that we have a model that works, and we respect it and we honor it. And we keep not only our finger on the pulse, but our foot on the gas. We keep our chins up. We work, I think, as openly, as creatively as we can to receive as well as to share and tell. Yeah.
Sure. So what percentage of businesses, and you may not know this, open up and fail within the first 3 years?
So I can speak specifically to my industry, and I know these metrics well. And so like, I can't speak to like overall small business, right? Or overall large business or enterprise as a whole, maybe nationwide, but I can speak specifically to, our vertical. I'm the executive director of the Utah Restaurant Association. So I have an indirect and direct role and responsibility to represent over 5,000 restaurants in Utah locally, and as well aligning to what we know nationally. And, I picked a tough vertical, right? Because, and I'll preface with, any business that has a low barrier of entry typically has a high failure rate. Why? Because it's easy to start the business, but no business is easy to sustain, right? Like you got to really go in and not just be an expert or have the passion, but you need the expertise and skill set and experiences. You need the acumen and trainings and learnings to actually know how to operate, right? And so in my business specifically, greater than 35% of all restaurants in Utah close within their first year. Greater than 75% of all restaurants in the country close in their first 3 years. So if you kind of take that metric, you're knocking on the door of like year 4, year 5, you have a 25% chance, according to statistics, to make it. And so those aren't great odds, right? Those aren't great odds. However, like you take what you know and what you're processing and your ability to self-educate, to gather, to grow, to build out architecture, to hire expertise, to hire those that are truly experts to fulfill your vision and mission, which I feel like we do really well at TMG. We have found that we have a far greater, success rate than that. In fact, all of our brands are currently viable, and those brands in our fold currently that we're expecting to go to scale are currently going to scale. We have roughly about 11 million in projects going vertical right now, which for a company that's been around for 6 years that had 0 when it started to 6 years later, has 11 million going vertical currently and does over 20 million in revenue. So we feel like we've figured out a bit of the recipe that works for us at this point. But yeah, I would say, 75% of all restaurants that open close at some point.
And in 6 years, I think
right,
you've cracked the code.
Well, I think it's the 15 years leading up to it that maybe I didn't even know we were building out such an expansive toolbox, that maybe I didn't even realize through like the trial and error and the pain and the realities. And there were some successes along the way. Like, trust me, there were some wins. Like, dude, we just talked about it. Like, you can go eat a smothered pork burrito right now. You can, go and crush a hot honey pepperoni or go have some pancakes and champagne, or, some of the best brisket you've ever eaten in your life in Southern Utah. The reality is we've created a lot of success, but it was the application of those learnings and failures that came with it. And I would say to anyone that's leaning into this, whether you're a successful entrepreneur or you're an aspiring entrepreneur, I think like one of the biggest maxims that I'm a true believer in is those that I find the successful, those that I see that have done it and do it well, there's a commonality to them. And the commonality that I see is that the ones that win and win consistently are the ones that are the fastest to fail. And they don't get romantic about it. They don't get hung up on it. They don't lose $1 million last year and all of a sudden it's like ruined their life, or they went dark on an idea or a vision or a brand and it ruined their life. They went belly up, they were bankrupt. They're just like, no, dude, that's a part of the process. And I would never tell you like, geez, going out and building restaurants at scale, that closing some is a part of the recipe, but the reality of it is it's a part of the method. You can have the best recipe in the world, right? If you're into baking or you know anything about recipes, like, dude, you need all the ingredients right. People don't mess up oftentimes with measuring out the ingredients and putting it in the bowl. What they mess up on is when you're supposed to mix in certain ingredients or certain temperatures, or how long they're to be mixed for, or how long they need to sit for, or how long they're supposed to bake for. It's related to the method. And I feel like the method is real estate. The method is conditions. The method is trends. There's so many things that are environmental that are associated with business that we don't pay attention to. And the reality of it is that failure is just a part of the method. Like, failing is a part of succeeding. And I think the ability for people to recognize that and to honor it and to realize that, like, dude, life's not over, business isn't over. And by the way, it's just a business. Like, it's not your life. It's not your livelihood. Like, it's literally just a business. And a business can be as temporary as you choose. Like, we at TMG plan to build businesses that can be in business forever. Why? Because we built them with the intent to sell, right? And people want to buy businesses that'll be relevant and can stay in business forever, right? But the reality of it is businesses ebb and flow, and life ebbs and flows, and we're the only ones that make it feel like peaks and valleys. Like, we as individuals, we as humans, we just complicate shit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it's like looking at a stock, right? If you look at the day, you're like, ooh, I'm down. But if you look at the last 5-10 years, it's like, oh, I'm actually really up.
I mean, that's why dollar cost averaging is a big deal. Just buy at every level.
Exactly. Yeah. And in life, we do have those peaks and valleys, and you may feel like you're in a valley right now, but it's because your mindset is you're focused on that one day, that one bad moment. But if you look bird's eye view on your life, you're actually doing really good.
I think again, it's all relative, right? Like what may be good to you may not be good to me. What may be good to me may not be good to you. I think that's something too, as entrepreneurs, like it's situational. Like get clear on what your vision is. Get clear on what your value is. Get clear on what your mission is. Get clear on why you exist. Get clear on your own significance. Because the moment you're comparing that to the rest of the industry, dude, listen, if I was comparing what we do to the industry, I would do a lot of things different, probably wouldn't be in business. Why? Because those same statistics are the ones that are going to guide me.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, dude, I'm in one of the business has some of the highest turnover of all. Right? Like, I think it's greater than like the average restaurant in the country turns over more than 2/3 of its staff every 6 months. Just think about that for a minute, right? It is not a peak industry such as, finance and some of these other industries that you're a part of. Like, I think it's like something crazy, like 4 or 5 out of every 10 Americans works in a restaurant at some point in their life. It's like 40%, something crazy like that. It's a huge metric. So the reality of it is a lot of these positions feel like stepping stones, right? Oh, I was a server or a busboy or a host or these things. Then people fall into the, reality of they want to be career cooks and servers and chefs and operators and, general managers and executives and so forth. But you look at that kind of turnover rate and you look at our business and at TMG, like our turnover is less than 30%. It's greater than 50% less than any average, and our viability is probably 2/3 better. And so that, I think, big part of that comes from the fact that we understand what's going on in current events and we understand what's going on, industry wise, but we still follow our own plans, push on our own muscle, or pull on our own muscle, I should say.
You're aware.
Yeah.
But you're also focused on what you're doing. Right?
I don't get distracted by it. Like the noise doesn't really matter to me, right? Like I skim books, I don't read them. Like that's just the reality. Like I take things, I kind of read and learn and grow in excerpts. Like I kind of almost live in KPIs. Like dashboards are sort of like how my mind works. Like what are the things to pay attention to and pour gas on them, and the other things I don't give a shit about. Like I don't get caught up in the mystery and the details, right? Like you followed me for some time, you've heard me speak, and I live by those maxims for a reason. Like 70% right, 110% sure. Like if I spent so much time being 95% sure, I'd spend so much time in the study that the study would almost challenge my faith and belief and talk me out of things, ultimately to where I'd have nothing. Or if I'm just clear enough on the vision, and I truly believe over time, I've learned that like not every idea belongs in market, right? But I'm a firm believer that like no one knows your business better than you. Truly, like it's yours. Like you built it. You developed it, and you have a choice. Did you build it online with your own reward center and your own instincts, your own expertise and your own vision? Or did you build the business off of someone else's blueprint? Because if you're not the author, right? If you're just the narrator, right? You're not the author of it. I think that's a big contributor to the failure rate. I think that's a big reason why a lot of businesses don't succeed, is because they want to use someone else's blueprint. And I'm all for like pull from others, like pull vision, pull inspiration, like pull best practice, pull fast failing, like learn from others around. But if you're an entrepreneur, you've chosen that, like it's, and I think some have maybe chosen that life, but I can tell you right now, it chose me for sure. Like I don't know that I could ever do it any other way, nor would I ever want to. I love employing people. I love creating opportunity. I love fulfilling dreams. I love connecting people through wonderful craft, like hospitality and craft. I love the synergy and role that restaurants and bars play in the overall like sociology and psychology of community. I love it. I just love it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the question that I'm curious on is you've launched some really exciting brands. Brands.
Thanks, man. Appreciate
Oakwood Fire Kitchen.
Yeah.
Your margarita pizza's the best, by the way.
Thanks, man.
We got Sunday's Best, and you got a couple of other restaurants going for you.
Yeah, many before, yeah.
When do you know when it comes to market that you absolutely know it's going to be a winner?
Yeah, I do know. Yeah, I can use Sunday's Best as an example of that. Like that was like a day one. Like there's always risk associated with like introducing a new vision, a new idea, or, figuring out like, how's your taco going to be different, right? Why is your margarita pizza so much better? Or like, why should it be, admired or, viably supported? And that's something that came with reps and time. I do believe that the day of thinking that you have 2, 3, 4, 5 years to mature a business and grab your viability. One, the cost of business is too high. Second, too many people. The competition has never been more vast, and the access to information and resources is just at our fingertips. And so I think now, like, we enter a branded market, we know within the first 6 months, we know whether, like, you might see this now, you might see these restaurants pop up or brands pop up, and all of a sudden 6 months later they're gone because the metrics, they're known. You can actually see, are you going to get the participation? Because the honeymoon phase is a lot shorter now, right? You used to open restaurants, you would peak and fall and then build back up and kind of settle. And the reality of it is, there's no question there is a short honeymoon phase, specifically in our Utah market, but you don't fall like you used to. Like, you peak and you settle at a position that is either performing or outperforming your expected plan. And we know that within a matter of months now. And so we either pull the plug or we quickly reinvent, and you basically have between that 0 month period, like you launch, to reinvent yourself in the next 12 to 18 months. That's it. That's all you got. In our business, you're either nailing it and you see it and you're on plan, or you're going dark. And, I know people get romantic about it. I know they want to hang on to it and they want to massage it and feed it, and I'm going to win and I can get there and I can get there. And the reality of it is that self-convincing narrative is just damaging, because all it's going to do is destroy value. So you got to learn when it's time to abandon. And I'm not saying that's quitting. What I'm saying is, I'm not saying give something an infinity amount of time and just be ridiculous and feed it all your energy and all your resources till you literally are fully exhausted and you have no resources left to give. I'm saying pay attention to the right metrics, know the damn math to your business, and go in and give it everything you've got and pay attention. And if you're pointing towards the right metrics and you see the viability, pour gas. If you don't, adjust. If you adjust and you don't win, abandon, because it's just a loss.
Yeah, pivot often.
That's just it. There's really, the romantics of the things that I just shared are probably what held me back the most early in my career. That I felt like everything worked, that everything should work. That's just bullshit. That's just this beautiful self-convincing narrative that I was lacking awareness and knowledge and acumen and partnership, that, that was just self-convincing and costly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you create your idea, obviously a lot of pen and paper work that goes behind that, and a lot of conversations.
A lot of ideation.
Culture.
Yeah.
I assume your culture is a big reason why people like to stay with you, and why a lot of people like to come to your restaurants consistently.
Listen, dude, I think brand is how people notice you. I think culture is why people come back. And, in our business, I would say everyone, but how many restaurants serve pancakes, dude? How many restaurants are in Champaign? How many places have pizza? How many places have brisket or, hot chicken? I'm a big believer that the same interest that you have at getting someone to buy your product, that giving them a reason to buy, is the exact same behavior that you build inside of your culture in giving people a reason to work for you. And when people advocate on your behalf, there's no better marketing, there's no better ad than just a fan, just an organic fan that loves your product, that loves the results it's created, that loves the value they get from it, and they speak on your behalf. They're not being paid, they're not an endorsement, they're just an evangelist, right? The exact same thing in our culture within our business. There's no greater billboard, there's no greater recruiter than a happy team member, than a team member that just loves working inside of the organization. And we do a lot there. We do a lot. It's not just wage scales and flexibility and newness or freshness of brand. There's a lot that goes into having what I believe is a thriving culture. And a big part of that is making people feel safe, making people feel rewarded, making people feel heard, holding people accountable, creating, undeniable amounts of proof in your commitment to their success, to their livelihood, to their well-being. And in our brands, that's a must for us. And it doesn't matter if you're serving with us, you're hosting with us, you're bartending, you're a barista, you're an ops talent, you work on the brand team, you're administrative, you work on the finance team. It doesn't matter. Every single one of those layers understands their value and knows their contribution and realizes that without any one of those positions, no one of us can be in business together. We all contribute to it, and no one of us are as good as we all can be together, right? And so that's culture is probably my number one in the business.
So
That's
what's your
closest to
process?
that's closest to my reward center.
So if there was a specific process that you followed to build your culture,
Yeah.
how do you go about that?
Make people feel safe.
And so to even get deeper into that, how do you make people feel safe?
One, create environments that are predictable, right? If you want things to be safe, like create an environment where people can be themselves, that they can celebrate in their individualism, that they realize that there's a plan and direction, that there's accountability partnership, that there's good reward, that we don't fuck with people's pay, right? Like there's a lot of things that you can do day in and day out in your communication, in your body language, in your ability to get people on board your vision, but to also get on board theirs. And I feel like in today's world, there is a give and take. There's a deposit and a withdrawal that takes place. And if you ask me, like, what is my big, I think, sort of secret or recipe in yielding that kind of outcome is, make way more deposits than you do withdrawals. Be vested in the well-being and lives of the people that work for you, that champion your vision. Make them know that you care about them and that you honor and reward and respect their contribution. It's a big one, dude. Hopefully you experienced some of that when working with our team before I got on your platform.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Samantha's phenomenal. And
Yeah.
she's on par. I see why you have her as your assistant.
I hear that often. Like she is a total badass, and she is tenacious and smart and disciplined and highly professional. And she's worked with me just over a year. So it's not like she hasn't been on the TMG team for many, many years. Like she's been on this team for just over a year. And, she exudes that of some of our most tenured team members, for sure.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, thanks.
So it's funny. I went to school, didn't want to be in school. I could have graduated junior year. My mom made me stay senior year. Bless her heart.
Yeah.
It was beneficial because I took a business class. One of the most important things that I learned in that business class is the act that relationships are simply a bank account.
Yeah.
You need to make more deposits than you take withdrawals. So I love that. And naturally, as you do that over time, it might take a week, might take a year to build that relationship up. But at some point, any team member, any client will only have good things to say about it.
Listen, like you need to build a relationship before the transaction, right? In today's business, like today's economy, today's business community, today's entrepreneurial community just sniffs out the transactional elements. And I would never consider myself to be like a networker, right? Like I actually don't even like the term. But what I will say is, like, I am a huge believer in building meaningful relationships and being a connector. Like actually aligning good, meaningful people and their intent with others where they can both seek value. That's a huge deal to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we talked a lot about that. We went on the Be Better event with Mark McCormack. Mark McCormack's the man.
He's a stud. Yeah, he's a good dude.
He built a lot of value for everybody in that room.
Totally.
But in that, we talked about how are you adding value to your friends, even to your family, to the 10 closest people to you.
Totally.
How are you adding value to them on a weekly, monthly basis?
And I think there's the easy way that people go like, hey, how can I help you? But the reality of it is the people that actually can help know where to. They know how to. And so I'm a big believer in not asking people how to help. I'm a big believer in just showing your help and just creating that opportunity and providing that insight, buying that product, writing that review, doing that post, coming onto the platform. Like I believe that oftentimes too much of the community thinks that they want to ask for help or need someone else to ask them for help. When in reality, if you build the right kind of synergies, you surround yourself with the right kind of people, they just show up for you, right? Like Mark McCormack's one of my really close friends. He and I were working through some deal flow this morning of all things. And we built a relationship personally that was built on self-awareness and self-love and growth and significance. And that translated into business, right? And I'm a big believer that the most transparent businesses, I think the most meaningful and most viable businesses, stand, on the very shoulders, minds, and hearts of the most aware conscious and significant individuals.
I love that distinction.
Yeah.
Most people are asking, hey, how can I support you?
Yeah.
And most of the responses you're going to get, oh, no, you're doing it. Oh, no, you can support me this way. Why not just go do it?
Yeah. And I think there's something too, like, dude, believe it or not, I had a friend, a good friend and a successful friend today. Like, dude, don't hang up the phone with me today. He's like, I want to know something I can do for you. He's like, I don't want you to hang up the phone until you tell me something you're going to do for me. And I go, like, honestly, dude, I would love, we had about a 20-minute conversation. It went pretty lofty. And I said, it was my boy, Rye Fry. And I said, dude, Rye, I would love for you to help me prioritize one time a week, whether we hike, we golf, we break bread, we ride Harleys, we just do something. It's like, or we even FaceTime, just 30 minutes to an hour a week. That's it. Help me do that with you. And I feel like, geez, dude, the amount of value that would create would be crazy. So I do believe that when someone does ask you, if you really do need help, be clear, right? Or you really do think there is a way that they can help you, be candid in that. But I think if you're the individual, because a lot of people is like, how can I do something? How can I help you? How can I do this? And the reality of it is, I treat those people like information zombies. You're not really in fact, you might be just asking me because I can't really think of a single thing you're going to help me with. Right? Like there is that demographic that just wants to ask shit. They're assholes, right? Like they just ask you stuff, tell you stuff, and they're not really creating anything. And so I'm like, if you're one of those, by the way, don't ever be an asshole. Don't ever be an information zombie. Like that's just a waste of time. And you get sniffed out. People spin away from that, over time.
Absolutely. And yeah, like I love that, pointing that out. It is okay to ask, but be intentional asking.
Totally. Like don't be robotic about it. Like that drives me crazy. Like in our business, when like my leadership, if they just walk by a table robotically, like, hey, how was everything for you? Oh, great. And they almost like, you've had this before, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
When like a manager visits your table and you're eating and they're literally 3 steps past the table physically or in their mind before you even respond. So they're so caught off guard when you're like, you know what, honestly, would you say, oh yeah, is everything going okay? They don't even know how to ask the rest of it because it's just a robotic question. Sometimes when that happens to me, when I'm out, I'll just fuck with them on purpose. Because they'll be like, you weren't even ready for this. I'm like, actually my steak wasn't cooked to the right temperature. Like, what? I'm like, yeah, and the server didn't actually upsell me on a raspberry lemonade, and I don't drink raspberry lemonade, but I would if she upsold me, right? Like I'll do things like that because I want to shake that sort of system of just being robotic, like be meaningful, be humanizing, like actually give a shit. Don't just check the boxes like, oh, hey, go visit the table or go check on the guest and thank them for it. It's like, no, like go actually have a meaningful engagement at the table and like thank them for voting for us.
Yeah.
There's 5,000 other options in Utah. It's like, dude, they picked us. 5,000 to 1's a pretty damn good odd.
Absolutely.
Like, let's go show our appreciation for it. And I feel that way too, like in business. Like, don't just call me to say that. It's just a waste of time. Like, call me and say, hey, you noticed something and here's where I can help. Or call me like, hey, dude, I don't think you're seeing this. Or let me be your eyes and ears. Or, hey, I really saw this platform or this product or this investment. Like there may be something there. Right? Like that's how you do it. That's how you create the value.
I love it.
Yeah.
And with that follow-up question, and to pivot more into you, this podcast is all about journey to authenticity, and that's about winning in ourselves and winning in business.
Yeah.
You paint your fingernails, you got some gnarly tattoos, you shave your legs. Like, I love how you just own being you.
Yeah.
How are you winning at such a high level and not wearing the suit and tie every day and just playing this whole facade?
Man, listen, I could probably spend all day talking about this topic alone because there was a big time in my life, dude, I didn't even own a pair of jeans. Like I wore like dress slacks, flat front chinos and suits every day. And man, if I would have known as a young executive, because my career started early for me. I was holding executive positions in my 20s for large emerging brands. And if I would have known back then when I was wearing Santoni Italian-made shoes and great suits, that if I just wore a pair of sneakers or a pair of checkered Vans, that literally everyone within my common staffs, that it would put us on almost a common field of communication, that style and expression and your own like your own projected self art invites people in. It just removes barriers. It removes these artificial walls. It makes you far more approachable. Like, listen, dude, I'm 6'3", 240 pounds. Like, I can be a little intimidating. If I put on a suit, it's kind of a big deal. And so, dude, I dress for the way I feel. And when I launched my own company, I'm like, bro, I have great suits, but I don't believe that a suit actually is like what puts you, and your bespoke is what puts you into business. I think that the authenticity, the proof, the undeniable amount of proof in your expression. I've used that term on here a few times, that like when you express yourself, right? Like when I post on Instagram or a video goes and it ends up getting, 30,000, 50,000, 100,000 views. There's a few comments where people are like, why am I taking, recommendation from, a grown ass man that has, fingernail polish? And I'm like, well, why the hell are you on this platform watching this dude that has fingernail polish with 30,000 views and has a lot of successful brands and is employed over 3,000 people and it's done over $500 million in revenue? Like, the fingernail is just a part of how I express my interests in things. And the reality is too many want to conform. Too many want to fall into line. Too many want someone else one day decided that you should tuck in your shirt and have a high fade and, thank you and my pleasure and whatever it might be. That was just some smart guy or gal or whatever at some point decided that. And for me, dude, like, I'm going to do it however the fuck I want, whenever I want. And anybody else can join me in that, and they don't have to, but I'm clear on where I'm going. How it is for me, man.
And that's what this audience needed to hear today.
I mean, that's what it's about for me. Like, I wear what I want. I say what I want. And I think there is another side of it. It doesn't mean that you should just go out and be, I don't mean this in like a derogatory way. Like, don't be an asshole. The reason I can express the way that I do is because I'm built on strong value.
Absolutely.
I know I'm good to people. Like, I know I built good architecture. It's very rare that I walk in a room and people aren't like, dude, your energy, like your smile, your interest, the reviews, the things that happen. Like, I recognize and respect the very environments that keep me in business. I respect and honor the very people that I love that create this wonderful and amazing universe for me to participate in. And I never take that for granted. And so when you're at your core root and you realize that you never take anyone for granted, that you don't take your God-given breath every day and your success for granted. And I think once you own that to your core, you can be whoever the fuck you want.
Absolutely.
Like, you can be whoever you want. And so I feel like because at my core and in my heart, I know I'm good, then this eccentric nature, my energy, my explosiveness, my tenacity, I think, how I parent my kids, how I run my businesses, the spouse that I am, the friend that I am, the uncle that I am, all comes from the core of just being radically clear on who I am. And I want to finish this thought with you. I know I'm taking a lot of time here, but this, I think, is so important for the audience. I hid behind, the watch, the car, the house, the girlfriend, the suit, the job title, before I really knew who I was. Like, I was never the guy like had roommates. Like, I like lived in the house. I couldn't afford it, but I wanted the house so bad. I wanted what people thought of me being 20, living in my own house or whatever it is. And now it's like, for one, those things actually served me to some level for some time. But the truth is that the moment I learned to love and respect the person I see in the mirror, the moment that I recognized my own significance and my ability to not only love myself, but to continue to fall in love with myself, and how those very pillars of that awareness and what kind of position it's put me in to serve the people that I love the most. I'm just such a believer, man, that like, you can never love someone until you love you. You can never build anything that is meaningful until you believe you're meaningful. Like, I'm a huge believer that like, you only will ever yield what you believe that you deserve and what you are worthy of. That's it. Like, it really boils down to like that core in life and in business. Like, the best men and women in business oftentimes are the most self-aware, most trusting, most authentic, and truest to themselves.
Absolutely. Well said. Thanks so much for coming on today, man. I really appreciate it.
Hell yeah. That was great, dude. I mean, these are topics that I love. I appreciate you building a platform like this to help entrepreneurs and those aspiring to become, to be authentic. When I saw that come across, and I was like, damn, that's a platform I'd love to be on, because I've been on both sides of it. Like, I got in business before I understood those things, and I came out the other side of it. And I don't believe that you have to lose everything along the way, right? Like, I don't believe that you have to rip it, tear it all down to the ground, burn everything down, light the ships to get into a place where you can have your most furthering life, that you can have your most optimal outcomes, that you can be a great human, a great partner, a great father, just an overall great, well-rounded and universal individual. And there's so many ways to do it now, but it really starts within you, man. Like, you'll never be a great business partner until you're a great partner to yourself. Like, it's just how it works, man.
Well said, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hell yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Journey to Authenticity podcast. If you liked what Michael and I said today, go ahead and subscribe and leave a review. This helps me get the most engaged, fun guests that drive the most transformation forward for you guys. Also, while I have you here, I want to bring your attention to Journey to Prosper, my book that I wrote a couple of years ago. This book will help you transform your life in 7 simple steps. Go ahead and go to braidenbelnap.com, Amazon, or the link below. Thanks, you guys.